What's some of the most surprising shifts you've seen in the platform and how people use it?
There are maybe 3 big surprises.
Tell me more about how this works. Hype.
What we always find is that creators often find a niche.
Can you remember where you had a wow moment where you realized just how big and influential this platform had become?
I basically saw like, oh my God, like YouTube is like the news here. Oh my gosh, like this is incredible. Like this is part of their daily lives in a way that I had never imagined something I worked on could be.
All right, Made on YouTube 2024 just went down. I'm here with Scott Silver. Scott, how are you doing?
Good.
There was a lot announced today, both for creators, for viewers of YouTube. Before we get into that stuff though, they're going to be wondering, who even is this man? Who are you, Scott? What do you do here?
I lead the engineering team at YouTube. I also lead the shopping team at YouTube, and I've been doing that for the last 8 years.
And what does that mean? Like for the
sure.
you lead engineering?
Yeah. So, I mean, the simple way to think about it is pretty much anything that you think of as YouTube, whatever it runs on your phone, your TV, your watch, it runs in our data centers. Like that's what the engineering team builds. That's what we run. That's what we make sure works all of the time, every day, every second of the day, every day of the week. That's our job. And that's what the team does.
And you've been at YouTube since 2016.
That's right.
It's a long time. So I'm sure you've seen some like wild changes to the platform over that time. What's some of the most surprising shifts you've seen in the platform and how people use it?
It's a great question. I would say that there are maybe three big surprises in my career at YouTube. The first was not about usage, was really about responsibility. So come 2017, you folks might have remembered it called the Adpacalypse, all of this kind of stuff. And we really spent a lot of time injecting responsibility deep into the platform. And so from an engineering perspective, what that really meant is we had to build software to understand the videos that we were recommending and that were on the platform on YouTube, understand them a lot better, and then apply the policies that we want to figure out what we recommend, what should or shouldn't be on the platform, all those kinds of things. And so that was, while it was like deeply emotional for all sides of that, it was really interesting technically because now we really had to understand deeply what was going on in those videos and apply some really complicated logic to decide what to do with them. So then the second thing, what I call our overnight 15-year success, which is in Living Room. So what we call Living Room, by the way, you folks must think about it as the TV, but we call the product our Living Room product. And YouTube has for years been working on a product that would work on TVs. And as you folks know, TVs have gotten smarter and smarter and smarter and better and better. And as that's happened, everyone believes what we believe, which is that people really want to see the content of YouTube, whatever device they're sitting in front of. And most people spend a lot of time watching TV. Like I grew up watching TV. We didn't have mobile phones when I was growing up, and I grew up watching TV. And so it turns out that people like to watch TV on TV, so, and if your TV is YouTube, well, you're so happy to watch it. So that was a huge change. And then the other big change is also short form content. And so in many ways, what we've seen is that YouTube has gone from sort of like medium length, let's say, to shorter and really long, both driven by user preferences, but also like, what people are holding in their hands or what they're sitting in front of. And it's been really exciting to see that happen.
Okay. I was wondering which way you were going to go. You gave me 3 good answers. And I think those were mostly viewer related for the most part. What would you say was an interesting shift on the creator side in that amount of time?
Sure. I mean, I think like there's all sorts of things going on the creator space. Like we saw an incredible, I would say, like, for lack of a better word, like professionalization of creators. Like I saw creators, I think that we all imagine creators as like all these these amazing creative types, which all creators are. But then at the same time, they're running these small businesses, and these small businesses move from small businesses to medium businesses, in some cases to large businesses. They were, running businesses as big as what, we had thought about the entertainment industry was 20, 25 years ago. And that was just incredible to figure out like how to work with creators in that way, how to give them what they wanted. So that's one way in which I think things really changed. And of course, the other thing that happened, along with the shorts side of the world is that we saw creators trying to figure out like how to take advantage of that content on the YouTube platform, how to take advantage of that format. So that was pretty interesting, and that brought in a whole bunch of new kinds of creators onto the platform, which was exciting. And then sort of lining up with that living room idea that I said before, we've seen creators, I think this is like the thing that people never thought was possible. I remember when I first saw YouTube, it was like, oh, I mean, that seems kind of junky or something like that, right? And then you realize no, it's not. And then all of a sudden, the amount of ability for creators to be able to make money and invest in this content, the content is just incredible quality. I mean, we're seeing content that rivals the best of what Hollywood has to offer. But people are making it in these small, medium businesses, and that's just incredible to see. And now they can enjoy it on these giant televisions and see all the cinematic quality. It's just remarkable to see how these changes have played out.
I agree. For me, obviously, I make YouTube content for a living, and then my evenings are spent watching TV, and it's YouTube that more often than not is what I'm watching. Yeah. So I actually thought I was kind of an anomaly because I go to the living room and I'm watching YouTube on my TV. How crazy is that?
When did you start doing that?
I've been doing that as part of it's almost like my daily routine for probably at least 5 years.
Yeah. And did it happen when you bought a new TV that was just good at YouTube, or did you what was the thing?
Well, I use Apple TV primarily,
yeah.
And the YouTube app is just right there in my front home. And for me, I almost feel like I watch YouTube in a different way than most do.
Yeah.
It's almost like I'm sure. I'm not comparing myself to Michael Jordan here, but I'm sure when Michael Jordan watches an NBA
he sees something
game,
different,
he's
right?
watching for a different
totally.
reason. He sees different things than just the average fan.
Yeah, you're a pro, right?
So I'm watching, and I'll watch videos that aren't necessarily made for me, just to see what are they doing, why is it performing the way it does, and what can I glean from this and learn from. So I'm kind of watching as a student at all times. But it's just an interesting side of YouTube now because I didn't realize how popular as you call it, the living room space is. But let's talk about that. Let's start there. What's new? What's coming to the living room?
One of the things that we talked about today, which we're really excited about, is a bunch of work to kind of bring what we think makes TV watching pretty amazing, which is serialized content. So we really want to bring that concept of episodes and series. We want to bring that into the living room. And so we're working real hard to change the user interface so that when users can come in, or viewers can come in with that expectation that they're actually going to see those kinds of things. We've changed. You folks might have noticed we've changed the layout a bunch to make it feel like I can find that content a lot better. And then, of course, we've tried to make home for all the different kinds of content that you might want to watch on your TV. Whether one of the things we did last year is we brought kids content into the living room app. It used to be a separate application, and so because we realized that a lot of TV watching is shared watching, right? And so the other thing we've done is we brought profiles into the living room, and so we really want to make sure when you sit down and watch the living room application, you can actually pick which profile you are. And the reason why we do that most of all is so that we give you the right recommendations. Like you probably watch, or I watch stuff that's different from my kids than when I'm watching with my kids. And so it's really important to get those things right.
All right. So one thing that daily YouTube on the big TV viewer, one thing I found is I don't know if it's the algorithm or just what I see on the TV isn't, I don't have as much breadth there.
Yeah.
As I have when I'm on my smartphone or a tablet. Mm-hmm. Is that something that's being improved here as well? Like for me, if I'm scrolling down a TV, there's a bunch of rows, and I'll just see repeats of thumbnails as I'm scrolling down. Oh,
so you're seeing the same? Are you seeing repeats in the sense that stuff you watched yesterday, or actually the same thing repeated?
The same. Not that I've watched it yet, but it's just like, here's the top row of what's recommended. Then I just start scrolling down through the recommendations. It's like, oh, I already saw that 2 rows up, and I saw that right there.
I see, yeah.
So it's like, as I'm scrolling, I might as well not be scrolling because I'm seeing the same stuff anyway.
Yeah, so, I mean, those are bugs. I mean, that's unfortunate. That shouldn't happen. I mean, we shouldn't be wasting your time by showing you the same thing twice if you've already passed it. I think that our living room recommendations algorithms are newer than the ones we've built for mobile or for desktop, and so they're getting better. But that's something I got to go write that down. I mean, that's something I got to go fix.
I'll email you about it.
Okay, great.
One thing I saw, or one thing I heard from my contemporaries here in the room was kind of a sentiment that long-form creators aren't getting the same kind of attention, at least when you look at some of the announcements from last year and then this year, like Dream Screen last year, right? This year, is it still called Dream Screen where you can create okay, so now you can create 6-second videos, Dream Screen for vertical. The Jules announcement, which is for vertical creators.
Yep.
How should long-form creators kind of take this? Because I think some were worrying, like, is less attention being paid to them, or... What should they take from that?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, I would say that the features that we're building for shorter content will eventually make its way to longer content. And I think that in those two examples, I have good answers for why it might make sense to start with those two areas. I think for short form content for video generation, or like a dream screen, it's just hard for us to generate long, consistent segments of video right now. And so we need to get started with the technology and make sure it works. And so that makes sense. And it takes a while to generate that video. So that's a good place for us to start. We expect that stuff to make its way there. And the same thing, by the way, with Jules. We expect Jules to make its way to, certainly at the beginning, to all live content. And I suspect that Jules will make their way, gifting via Jules will make their way to all kinds of content. This is really just the tip of the iceberg for us. The other part I would say is, and I think that it's hard to see this because it's the most invisible thing of YouTube and also the most visible all at the same time, which is that a lot of our work goes into recommendations. Like a really big part of our team goes into figuring out the right recommendations. And I would say that the number one best gift we can give, it's not a gift, it's the number one thing that creators earn is viewers' attention. And one of the things that we can do is make sure that if viewers want to see longer form content, longer videos, to make sure to give them that. And just like I said at the beginning, there are really two areas that are growing very quickly, which is short form content and long form content. And so my hope is that even if one of those announcements doesn't directly affect a long form content creator right now, my hope is that they're seeing it actually pay off right now in terms of the recommendations work we're doing. Lastly, I'll say is if you look through some of the other announcements, like one of the things that we've talked about is the inspiration tab as a part of Creator Studio, and I feel like hopefully that benefits everyone equally.
That was actually where I was going to go next. Tell me more about that. So the inspiration tab will not only kind of give us insight into what we might want to create, but will also even help us with some of the more, I would say, the tasks that we're not good at. So you might be great on camera, but it doesn't mean you are an expert at Photoshop and making a thumbnail. Right? And this could help there too. How did that come about?
Oh, yeah. I mean, that's our bread and butter. We talk to creators and say, what's hard about your job? What would you like us to help you make easier? And then if we can think about ways to do a better job to help them make their lives easier, we want to do that work. So that one's like just so much of what the team really is focused on. And I think the inspiration tab, I can't say this enough. It's really just the beginning for the inspiration tab. If you see the progress in large language models and image generation models, if you look at what's going on the internet today across all these different companies, you can imagine that what you see today, it's going to be dramatically better 3 months from now, 6 months from now, 12 months from now. I really feel like just having a spot where we can expose those ideas and these kinds of tools, then we can just kind of work on the core algorithms to make them better. And I suspect these places hopefully will get a lot better and make all creators' jobs way easier in a very short period of time.
That's nice. I'm very excited about that feature, and I love seeing AI being used in such a way that we still kind of have some input and control.
100%.
One question I asked Neil in there, and I'm going to ask you too. How does YouTube avoid a situation where over time we use the inspiration tab, AI tells us, here's what you might want to make. We make that. AI then serves that to viewers, which then, based on what they watch, AI gives us more recommendations about what to make. We make that. How do you avoid it becoming AI recommending what AI wants to see, as opposed to creators creating what viewers want to see?
It's a good question. So first of all, I think the key part there is there's still humans in the loop, the humans being viewers who are watching content. I think in our heart of hearts, we believe that humans want to see unique content that inspires them, that touches them, that reaches them, all that kind of stuff. And so it doesn't really matter if they're, like in this case, if AI is generating content and then making recommendations. If the humans don't like it, the AI will theoretically should stop recommending. And if it runs out of ideas, where are those ideas going to come from? From creators, right? Like so in my view, ultimately, I think having humans in the loop is one of the most important decisions that YouTube has made on every single AI product we build. There are always humans in the loop, whether it be our recommendation systems, whether it be our in terms of evaluating quality, our viewers in this case deciding what's important. That's a really, really important thing. And so I'm actually not super worried about this. I think I would highlight something that I'm more worried about with AI, which is lots of duplicative content and things like that. And that's where I feel like it's kind of like a like a spam problem or something like that. I feel like YouTube will be ready to do those things, but it's always a cat and mouse game with that kind of stuff. And so that's an area where we're really looking out for, because we think we'll see more of that before we see the kinds of things that at least you're worried about at the moment.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's move on to the communities feature, which is kind of meant to enable deeper engagement and community between the viewers. So this is a feature not just for creators, but for viewers as well, kind of bringing something new for both sides. How do you envision subscribers using this feature where they can contribute their own post? And do you think that this will genuinely enhance the creator-subscriber relationship?
You will certainly remember. You remember when we used to have comments on channels?
I sure do.
Okay, so I think to the extent that you think that was both effective and ineffective at the same time, our hope is when we took that away, we didn't realize what we were taking away. What we were taking away was this idea of there are all these folks who are interested in your content, and they need to be able to talk to each other, and you want to talk to them. And of course, the obvious place to do that is in the context of a single video. But how do you do that when it's a range of interests? Like, what if you're just a tech enthusiast and you want to talk about all of the latest announcements? Where actually do that? Where's the place to go do that? Right? Well, is it Reddit? Like, is it somewhere else?
Is a bunch of places.
Is it WhatsApp groups or what is it, right? And so we thought because YouTube brought these folks together and you're the reason why they're there, we figured that having some kind of notion of discussion and sharing in the context of your channel made a lot of sense. We also think that just comments wasn't enough. We really wanted to bring kind of what we learned from the community tab in terms of posts and images and things like that. That your viewers, your subscribers specifically, want to share what's going on with them. Like if you ever really in all those how-to videos when people are saying I did this kind of thing. This is how I installed the rooftop tent on my SUV or something like that. Here's what I did. And here's how I did it. And because my SUV is slightly different than the one that you, the creator, installed it on or something like that. And all that stuff is kind of like buried in like a weird place. And here now we're going to bring all that stuff together. So I'm actually really excited about this. And I think coming back to your question about how I think it'll enhance two things. One is your subscriber to subscriber connection, which I think is something that's missing on YouTube.
Absolutely.
And I think that I don't know, some creators are really excited about being a part of that, and some creator being connected, or they're really just happy when they brought creators together. And I feel, viewers together. And I'm just so excited to bring subscribers together in a way where they can talk to each other, and then the creator who brought them together can be a part of nurturing that community. So I actually can't say more about how I'm excited about this. Of course, we'll see how people actually use it, but I think it's going to be pretty amazing.
Yeah, I almost feel in a way that this is a different type of creator that YouTube is kind of allowing for. Yeah. There might be people who are just uncomfortable on camera and they're never going to make a YouTube video, but they can be very present in the community area and almost develop a following of their own within that, where the other subscribers look to them for advice or guidance as well.
I think that's an awesome idea. We're actually not even there yet, but that sounds amazing.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, next feature I wanted to go over is hype.
Yeah,
hype. Okay, very unique way to give viewers agency on YouTube. Tell me more about how this works. Hype.
Yeah. Okay. So let's start with the problem. Problem is the age-old creator problem is I am a creator. I'm a new creator. I'm a small creator. I'm not yet a large creator. I don't feel like I've reached the same kind of viral success, for lack of a better word, on YouTube. And I need a way to get my message out. And what we always find is that creators often find a niche, a beginning niche audience. They often find some set of people who are just so excited about this creator and they want them to be successful. So we didn't know necessarily how, instead of just including that viewership in the recommendations algorithm, which is sort of the core way we do that, we thought maybe there's an idea that there are viewers who just they know that this creator is just the next creator, they are so awesome. We want to give them a way to express that desire so that they could help a creator out. And so what we basically said is that for creators who have fewer than, I think we said 500,000 subscribers, that the viewers will be able to hype their videos up to times a week.
Yep.
And then those hypes will appear in a special place at YouTube. We're calling a separate leaderboard. And the hope is that that becomes kind of like this a trending-ish kind of thing, but populated by the viewers themselves. Like we know it comes from we know it comes from the hypes, and that's where it comes from. And then there's this long-term idea that it could be that this could be a way for viewers to appreciate creators in financial ways. So the hope is long-term that perhaps this will be a way for viewers to actually appreciate creators by hyping them and like going beyond perhaps those 3 times a week. It might cost you a little bit of money, maybe a few jewels to come back to that sort of platform feature. And our hope is that becomes an alternative monetization way or an additional monetization way for creators to make money.
How did you settle on the 3 hypes per week?
Okay, so there was a lot of debate about this. You're human, and you want to say, like, if I forced you to say, like, what's the 3 things that you love this week? If I asked you what are the 10 things, like, that's a lot. But one thing feels like too few, because I always love more than one. So in the end, we just said, okay, like, it's a very human kind of idea. Let's pick a small number. And by the way, like all these things at YouTube, we're starting with 3. Like, is the right number 2? Is the right number 9? Or 14? I don't really know. We'll figure it out and go from there. But we wanted to really just imagine a viewer making such a decision and how they might talk about it.
I imagine myself with
what do you think it should be, by the way?
Well, see, here's the thing. I imagine myself with my 3 hypes, right?
Yeah.
If I use them all on Monday,
and
then something amazing happens on Friday, my hypes are gone. I got now when Monday rolls around, I get 3 more. I got to go back. I got to go hype that one. You see what I'm saying? So I almost want to be able to get my hype.
Pull your hype?
Yeah, it's like when you're judging the Olympics. You can't start with a 10.
Yeah,
right. You got to start with like maybe an 8, and then you go up or down.
Maybe you should do like Tuesday hypes. Like you go Wednesday to Tuesday, and like Tuesday morning, like you hype it up.
You know what? I want 5 hypes. One per week. One per weekday.
One per weekday. All right.
5 hypes.
All right. I'll tell the team.
Okay. So with paid hypes though, how do you avoid? There's always bad actors everywhere.
Oh yeah.
I'm gonna buy 100 hypes for different accounts, and they're all gonna hype this latest video that I just dropped.
So we haven't designed that. Like we haven't designed the feature yet. I mean, clearly we're gonna have to cap it or find abusive cases, all of those kinds of things. Like what we don't want is we don't want this to become a way to buy your placement and get views. What we do want this to be is an alternative way of discovery. Like the very hard problem that YouTube is entirely focused on is how do we get more creators discovered? How do we match viewers and what they want with videos that haven't been seen enough, or creators' videos who haven't been seen enough. And so ultimately, this has to fit in that sweet spot of an additional kind of exploration mechanism. And I think that, to your point, like if I'm just spending all my money to hype one person, like, and we're starting to like see people who watch it and then like, that wasn't very good. I think that would be a strong signal that that's kind of an overhyped thing. And so for sure, we're going to have the same kind of quality stuff built in.
You know what? I would like there to also be an overhyped badge now.
Yeah, overhyped.
If I click on a video because it's hyped, overhyped. Okay, got it.
The YouTube way is not to live on anything negatively.
I'm just saying.
That's not our thing.
I'm saying what I want.
All right.
Okay. Let's talk AI though. When it comes to AI, what are the biggest fears you've heard from both a creator standpoint and a viewer standpoint when it comes to YouTube?
Yeah, creators are really worried that AI will replace them. Like that, I think that's the core thing we hear, and I think we've said many times that in our view, creators are a core part of the creation process, and we think that not because we want it to be that way or we think it should be that way, because we think it's the only way YouTube will work. We really think it's at the core of the authenticity of YouTube. Like viewers watching computers, talking to computers, we think is not really going to be how YouTube will work. YouTube won't grow. Like we really believe that, and so we're focused on making sure that's true every step of the way. Viewers, I think, are worried about the same thing. They also don't want to watch fake stuff. They don't want it. But viewers have a bunch of other concerns, right? There's misinformation.
Yes.
They worry about like how it affects governments. They worry about like being tricked into like crypto scams, all of those kinds of things. So viewers have like a wide range of concerns, and I feel like those are squarely in the kinds of responsibility challenges that we've been facing, as I mentioned earlier. That we've been facing. I think that the creator side of it, like I really think comes down to like I love my job. Like I think I have a unique voice. Like a computer can't replace me, and we agree with that.
Kind of going back to the dream screen feature just for a moment. There's a lot of things on YouTube that you can make videos about that are within terms of service, but also can be controversial.
Yeah.
will YouTube allow creators to create anything with Dream Screen as long as it falls under proper community guidelines, or will it be even more restrictive?
Yeah, in the fullness of time, that's the vision, that's the principle, which is that we really do want to ensure that you'll be able to create anything that falls within the sort of community guidelines. In the beginning, we're going to be a little bit more careful. Like we really we don't want to screw this up. Like we don't want to launch something and then people do all sorts of bad things with it, and therefore that overshadows all the good things that can be done with it. And so, for example, we're going to be pretty careful about political content and religious content, things like that at the very beginning. And then over time, we'll widen it out. But for sure, we'll get started slowly.
Right. So for example, I can do a skit where I have a heart attack and die or something, right? I'm trying to make a funny skit.
Yeah.
Is that something I can just put into the AI? The person has heart attack and falls over and dies, or is that more like we don't want to touch that?
So again, stuff related to health, we're gonna be careful about. But I think a person trips and hurts themselves falling over a bench or something like that, like slapstick comedy or something like that. We'll let you do that.
Okay, fair. So we talked about the community feature on your channel, but there's also a community feature coming to
Creator Studio.
Which will help you with your comments. Can you tell me more about that and what do you expect how that to be used?
Yeah. So there's two or three things going on there. So first of all, with the introduction of communities, there's a new kind of content type, right? Which are the things that are a part of your community, and you need to go to a place inside Creator Studio in order to moderate them, to address them, all of those kinds of things. And so we needed to find a home for that, and then also. We really wanted to make it streamline. Going back to that thing I was saying before, we just listen to creators and they say it's really hard to manage my comments. Could you please just make the insanity better, right? And we've been working on it for a long time. We did moderation and all that kind of stuff. And so this is essentially a rethinking of that user interface to bring all those things together. So instead of just creating this communities thing and then creating yet another tab in Creator Studio, which is manage your communities, which is a little different than managing your comments, but also kind of the same, that kind of thing. We tried to bring them together. The other part is that we're going to introduce things you'll be able to choose amongst automatic replies. So just for those who use Gmail, where it has those quick replies and things like that, it'll be fully in creator control. It'll ideally sound like you. It'll be something you would have picked. But the hope is that it just speeds your replies. So however you say thank you, right? Our hope is that it'll very quickly allow you to click a button instead of having to type all those words and those kinds of things.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So when you say it'll sound like me, is it learning from other comments that I've written, or is it also learning from how I speak in my videos? Yeah,
so I think the focus will be on, I think initially on comments, and I think we'll eventually figure out how to include what you say in your videos. But again, it'll take us a while to get this right. But our hope is that it'll be personalized in a way that sounds like you, but also you're fully in control to decide what it is how you want to reply.
I love that. Okay, before we get out of here, just a couple questions about you.
Yeah.
YouTube is such a big part of people's daily lives. I'm sure working there, even more so for you. Do you have any favorite channels or creators that you find yourself going to when you just want to, you're not doing work, you're not in work mode, just trying to relax and unwind, maybe in the living room experience?
Now you're gonna really turn me into the dork I am, man. I mean,
hey.
Okay, so I love Everyday Astronaut.
Okay,
I'm a sucker for every space launch. Just love it. I love Grant's channel for math. I love that kind of stuff. So those are the kinds of things I watch. I have a kind of a weird dork thing I do, which is that lots of people watch shorts to watch all these entertainment things. I do two things on shorts. One thing I watch on shorts is short math things with people solving math Olympiad puzzles or weird algebraic problems for some reason. I dig watching those things. And the other thing I do, this will make me a little less dorky, is that I watch people. I watch. There's actually recently Warren Miller has put a lot of the ski clips up there, and so I watch a ton of people jumping off cliffs and stuff like that. And I say would I do that? And sometimes secretly I'll tell you don't get me in trouble with Neil, but sometimes when he's talking in meetings, I'll just say would I do that? Would I do that? Would I jump off that thing? And on mute, of course. and that's another thing I do.
Incredible. Okay. Last question for you.
Yeah.
You've obviously been a big part of YouTube's growth. Again, you've been here for a long time. Can you remember whether it's the first time or just a time where you had a wow moment where you realized just how big and influential this platform had become?
I had one of those moments. I don't remember the first time, but I'll tell you the most recent time.
Yeah.
So I was traveling in India, and I was visiting. We have a team who works in Bangalore, and I was visiting them, and I was in a cab from the hotel to the office, and I had stopped somewhere, and I saw all these folks with their screens out. And, it's a little creepy, but, you kind of want to see, like, what people are doing on their phones. Like, I don't want to really look at their content. I just want to see, like, what apps they're using and all that kind of stuff. And I basically saw, like, oh, my God, like, YouTube is like the news here. Like, it's amazing. Like, we're in the middle of this big election and all this kind of stuff. It's like, oh my gosh, like, this is incredible. Like, this is part of their daily lives. They're literally sitting at a stall, whatever, making a chai or doing something else. So they're waiting to pick up someone for a taxi ride or something like that. And this, it was just amazing. Like, it was just one of those moments like, oh my gosh, like, this is a part of their lives in a way that I had never imagined something I worked on could be.
Amazing. Scott, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for yours.